So you guys, in this video, these are my three main talking points: overall quality, trigger, and price. Look at the Walther PPQ and talk about some of the features it has over the VP9. The first one is going to be the serrations on the top of the slide to reduce glare. You can see that right there, the serrations all the way down the slide. Meprolite night sights. Compared to the VP9, you can see that it looked like they were maybe going to put serrations, but they didn't. The second one is going to be sights. Sights on your Walther PPQ, if you get this over the VP9, are going to be easily interchangeable. You can change them out yourself. It's a very easy process. It takes about 5 minutes total to install the rear and the front sight. Very easy to do. You only need two tools, really. You need the Meprolite hex tool to install the front, and then you need a small slotted screwdriver. That's it. While on the VP9, you're going to need a sight pusher of some sort. This is going to be a lot harder to install new sights, while on the PPQ it's going to be very easy to do. So now let's talk about some of the features that the VP9 has over the PPQ. You can strip your magazines out very easily because of the indents right here in the polymer frame. You just rip it out. Another feature that the PPQ does not have is your charging supports right here in the rear underneath your sight. They work too. They really do help you charge the gun. So they're nice. I'm actually surprised that I like them. I mean, they're kind of weird because no other handgun that I've ever seen has ever had these on it, but they're functional. They do help. Both guns have forward slide serrations. Some people like to rack around in the chamber using the front slide serrations, or they like to do press checks. Right here we have a snap cap. Now it's in there. If you want to do a press check, check and see if you have a round in the chamber. I think that's a nice feature that the VP9 and PPQ have on them. One thing the PPQ does not have stock is a steel guide rod. The PPQ comes with a plastic guide rod that I would definitely recommend changing out for a steel guide rod by BT guide rods. You can definitely tell that the BT guide rod is, in my opinion, higher quality than the HK guide rod. Look how thin this is on the H&K, and a part of it is hollowed out, as you can see. The BT guide rod, steel guide rod, is full steel. There is no hollowed out piece like there is on the VP9, and you can tell it is much thicker than the VP9 guide rod. The slide on the left is the Walther PPQ slide, and the slide on the right is the HK VP9. You can definitely tell that the HK VP9 looks like a more complex design. The Walther PPQ design looks more like a traditional striker fire design, like the Glock. That's the Glock 17 Gen 4. Both pistols have cold hammer forged steel barrels and polished feed ramps. One thing I want to point out right here is look how thin the Walther PPQ walls are compared to the HK VP9. That's interesting. But I just wanted to point out it looks like the steel on the sides is thicker compared to the Walther PPQ. Side profile of the pistol slides. Right here it looks like the PPQ is larger, more serrations to grab a hold of. This also might mean that the PPQ has a higher bore axis, so it might have a little bit more recoil. But I was talking to the other half of Beretta 9mm USA, and we both agree that we think the PPQ has less recoil overall, especially if you add the steel guide rod. And you'll see how heavy duty the guide rod is right there compared to the VP9 right now. So in the versus video of the Walther PPQ versus the VP9, in the Walther PPQ we had the stock guide rod, which is plastic. I decided to put the steel guide rod in the PPQ. So there's the front. Look how thin that guide rod is compared to the Walther PPQ aftermarket steel guide rod. You can just tell, look how thin it is. Because of this guide rod, if you put it in the 9mm Walther PPQ, it should have less recoil than your HK VP9. So again, you guys, there is another look at how thick the Walther PPQ guide rod is compared to the HK VP9 guide rod. The The VP9, let's talk about that first. Look at that. That is a huge section of metal for the slide right on in the front. The only other gun that I know of that has rails like this for the slide to ride on is the Ruger SR9. I mean, that's a large amount of rails compared to every other gun, including the Glock, where it's just got these little pieces of metal for the slide to ride on. That is a big difference. The rails that the VP9 rides on are definitely higher quality than the rails that the PPQ slide rides on. Another feature that I really like about the VP9 is the fact that the magazine release is ambidextrous. European style, but it doesn't really bother me. I like how the piece that connects the two levers is on the inside of the trigger guard, not on the outside. Right here, like on the USP. Grip on the H&K feels really good in the hand. You can also replace your back strap and your side panels to make it fit better in your hand if you have smaller hands or larger hands. While on the PPQ, you can only replace your back strap. But that doesn't stop the PPQ from feeling really good in hand to a lot of shooters. So unlike on the H&K, the Walther PPQ M2 has an American style magazine release regarding to being push button. It's not a paddle right here. So it's not a European style mag release, it's traditional. And I have it reversed over to this side for a lefty. Stock, it comes on this side for righties. One thing I prefer that the PPQ has over the VP9 are these slide releases. I like the design better on the PPQ than on the VP9. And I think a lot of right-handed shooters would agree, because a lot of people are having trouble where they are resting their thumb on the slide release and the slide is not locking back like it should on an empty magazine. While on the PPQ, you aren't going to have those problems if you use a traditional thumbs forward grip. You just aren't. For a lefty regarding the VP9, you're fine. You're not going to accidentally not lock it back, but right-handed people are having a lot of problems with it not locking back on the last round because they're thumb is on the slide release. Which one do I think feels better in the hand? I can tell you that the VP9, personally for me right now, it fills my hand. You can definitely tell that this feels like a full-size frame, or this feels more along the lines of a compact. So I guess right here we might as well talk about the stippling on the grip. As you might be able to tell right here, the VP9 stippling, it's raised a little bit more than the PPQ. So if you like a little bit more aggressive stippling, the VP9 is the way to go for you maybe. Or if you don't mind the way this feels in hand, the PPQ might be the way to go for you. They both feel similar in hand regarding the stippling though. I just want to show you guys the magazines real quick. You can definitely tell that the HK VP9 magazine is larger. The standard magazines for both these pistols hold 15 rounds. HK makes their own magazine, and Walther has Mekgar make their factory mag. As you can see right here, made in Italy. That means that it's made by Mekgar. Okay, you guys, now we are at trigger. I'm going to show you the HK VP9 trigger first. So there's your take up, and then you hit your wall. Very little amount of travel. You hit your wall right here. You have a little bit of creep, and then it just falls. The reset is not very good, as I'll show you right here. You hear that? That's probably where some people might think it reset, but it didn't. That's a first little click. And the second click is your reset, and you can pull again. You just saw there was a little bit of stuff going on with the trigger too right there. How it does have quite a bit of creep. Now comparing that to the PPQ, this is your travel before you hit the wall, right here. And it just breaks. There is no creep. Now here's your reset. It just hits the wall and breaks. So the trigger, in my opinion, is far superior on the Walther PPQ. Comparing that to the Glock 17 Gen 4 trigger, that's your travel. Now you're at the wall. There's just a little bit of creep in the trigger before it breaks. Now here's your reset. You see that? There's a little bit of stuff going on right there before the trigger breaks. So personally, I think out of these three guns, I think the Walther PPQ has the best trigger. Now, what I like about the HK VP9 is the take-up. There's far less take-up in the VP9 compared to the other two guns. So you have just a little bit of take-up and then you're at the wall. And then you have a lot of stuff going on in the trigger, it seems like, before the break with the HK VP9. Now, if they had a trigger right in the middle of the PPQ and the VP9 with the perfect reset on the PPQ and break, and with the VP9's take-up, I think that'd be the perfect trigger. So real quick, let's just talk accessories for the Walther PPQ compared to the HK VP9. Since the HK VP9 has only been out now for 2 months and the Walther PPQ has been out for a few years now, probably 4 years around that, there's going to be a lot more accessories for the Walther PPQ like this. Here's a Walther P99 holster that fits the PPQ perfectly. So for the VP9, you're going to have to get a custom-made holster by one of the holster manufacturers if you want to have a holster for it. Another thing about the PPQ is that you can get a steel guide rod, obviously. A high-quality steel guide rod by BT Guide Rod, which is what I have in the gun, and there's the factory one. Another thing on top of that you can get for the PPQ that I don't think you'll ever be able to do for the VP9 is get cheaper aftermarket magazines. So to the right you have a factory Walther magazine, 17 rounder, and to the left is the Canik TP9 magazine, 18 rounds. This functions 100% in the Walther PPQ, and they're cheap. They're $21.95 a piece. And that's all the accessories that I brought out right now, other than night sights. There are a few companies that offer night sights now for the Walther PPQ, including Meprolite and Trigicon. Trigicon makes their standard 3-dot configuration, and they also just came out with the Trigicon HD night sights for the Walther PPQ. The HK VP9 in our area sells for $630, while the Walther PPQ sells for $549. So $630 for the HK VP9, and then I'd suggest buying 4 extra magazines for your gun, and that drives the price from $630 up to $830 total. And that's how I'd configure the VP9. So then we're back to the Walther PPQ. You pay $549 for its stock, and then I'd suggest buying 6 of these Canik TP9 magazines for $21.95 a piece. If you buy 6 of those, then you have a total of 8 magazines. And after that, I'd suggest buying the BT Guide Rod's steel guide rod for $60. And then after that, you can buy your night sights. I prefer right now the Meprolite True Dot night sights for $80. So that makes your price for your Walther PPQ fully outfitted with a steel guide rod, night sights, and 8 magazines, $820. So the fact of the matter is, you guys, you get more for your money if you buy the Walther PPQ over the HK VP9.